Congratulations again on the appointment and the confirmation from the courts.
Thank you.
To anyone in St. Louis County who might be wondering, who is Melissa Price Smith? How'd you get here?
I'm a career prosecutor. I am meant to be a prosecutor. I'm inspired by what I do. For the last 20 years, I wake up every morning because of the work I do with victims. I'm a prosecutor. I'm not a politician. I've grown up in this office, and I intend to really make this office stronger. St. Louis County deserves a strong prosecutor's office, and I intend to work in partnership with law enforcement to hold violent offenders accountable and give victims a voice and help them find justice.
You're speaking a lot about your experience. A lot of that experience was spent investigating and prosecuting sex crimes. I can't imagine how the things you must have seen, the grisly crimes and the victims in a vulnerable position. I can't imagine how all of that must have shaped your perspective.
I've worked in nearly every area of this office, starting in misdemeanors. I've done guns and drugs, property crimes, robberies, burglaries, homicide, but for the vast majority of the last years, I've done sexual assault and child abuse. I've seen some of the worst, but it's also been my honor to work with some of the bravest people I've ever met, and I'm talking about the victims in these cases, and they inspire me. And that's why I feel so strongly about our sexual assault, child abuse team here, as well as our domestic violence team, which are very, very strong teams and will continue to be under my leadership.
You're using language like strong prosecution. It sounds similar to tough on crime. You put 100 lawyers in a room, you get 100 different opinions, right? So I understand there's always disagreement sometimes in debate internally. What's your philosophy on prosecutorial discretion? When to charge, when not to charge? How should we think about the way you approach these delicate decisions?
Well, every case is an individual case, and every defendant is a person. Every victim is a person, so prosecutorial discretion is extremely important. Yes, I want a strong prosecutor's office because I know St. Louis County deserves it, and we need to be tough on crime and violent offenders. However, I also feel very strongly about our treatment courts. Treatment courts give nonviolent offenders a second chance. Treatment courts give them an opportunity to get help and really to change the trajectory of their lives. Speaking honestly, and I've said this before, if treatment courts, particularly drug court, had been around 40 years ago, my own brother might be alive today. So I'm very aware that these courts are an integral part of our system, and prosecutorial discretion is very important in determining who deserves a second chance, who can be helped with treatment and support.
I'm sorry to hear about your brother's passing. I didn't know about that. Is there anything about that you'd like to elaborate on? I don't know how old you were when...
Actually, my brother passed 2 years ago. He was in a motorcycle accident about 40 years ago. However, prior to that, he had a very serious drug problem. And to be quite honest, he was in trouble with the law all the time. So I will tell you, I'm a prosecutor. I also know how it feels to be in a family on the other side. I get it. I get both sides of it, and every case is individual.
That's an interesting example that you raised, because I don't know if you see yourself as someone who defends a prosecutor's office or someone who wants to reform it. I'll ask the question this way. People who are accused of crimes, that's a big interruption to their life. They can lose a job. They can spend time, if they can't afford to pay bail, they can spend a lot of time in jail waiting for their trial. How do you think about that question? Is the use of cash bail appropriate? Is it a practice that you're going to use to the full extent, or is that something where some reformers of a criminal justice system might want to say we want to use that less and rely instead on other means to make sure someone appears in court for their trial?
Well, again, it's a case-by-case basis, and I've been a prosecutor for a long time. There are some offenders, particularly violent offenders, who should have a high cash bail. St. Louis County deserves that, or request no bail at all. I have been talking about a violent crime unit and reinstating our violent crime unit, which had been suspended several months ago. I reinstated that unit this past Friday. We have a strong veteran prosecutor who's running it, and he will have other attorneys working with him. The goal of the violent crime unit is they will be on call 24/7 to work with law enforcement so they can review and issue charges of this violent nature without delay. The other issue we have with violent offenders is these are also often the offenders who are repeat offenders. These are the people who need to be off the streets and kept off the streets.
And bail is a tool to do that?
Bail is absolutely a tool to do that. There are other means in other cases. In the cases of violent offenders, whatever means we have, they need to be kept off the streets.
You say you're reinstating the violent crime unit. Do you also plan to keep in place the special unit charged with investigating crimes involving police officers?
Absolutely. Our walled-off unit will stay in place in crimes investigating police officers. Absolutely, that will stay in place, and that is run by one of our attorneys, Jessica Hathaway, who is a very strong prosecutor, and she'll continue doing that work as well. We'll also continue our sexual assault child abuse unit, our domestic violence unit, and we are in the process of starting a homicide unit, which should be up and running in about 2 weeks. And again, that will be a specialized unit similar to the sexual assault and domestic violence unit, where those attorneys can work specifically and focus on homicide crimes.
How is a homicide unit different than a violent crime unit, and will either one of those work in tandem with the feds?
Well, first of all, our office is always open to working with the feds. As I've been a prosecutor for many years, on several cases, I will get calls from the feds. They will sometime have cases pending at the same time. They will sometime come in and take a case that we have to their jurisdiction. So our office will always work in tandem with the feds. In terms of your question about violent crimes being different than homicides, well, obviously there's homicides, but in St. Louis County there's also a lot of violent offenders that are not charged with a homicide or a murder.
So I guess the way to ask the question more precisely is, will the violent crimes unit only be investigating crimes that are not homicides, that are violent?
Yes, they will, and the homicide unit will specifically look and handle homicides. They will also likely handle other cases in the office. But because of St. Louis County is so large, St. Louis County deserves specified units who can handle specific crimes and have expertise.
All of this sounds like a lot. Does this require more manpower?
Well, first of all, I would never say no to more manpower. However, it is important that we can work with the resources that we have. We have some incredible people in this office, and I think if we can reallocate our resources, our people, I want to hear from every person in this office, because we all share a similar passion to find justice. But with the resources we have and a reallocation of those resources, we can also do these things, these goals that I've spoken to you about, with what we have. Yes, I'd welcome more attorneys, more staff, but we can do this with what we have.
You're coming to this position at an interesting time of transition in St. Louis County. What will be the legacy of Wesley Bell in this office?
Wesley Bell was a good leader. Everybody liked him here, and I intend to build on the things that he did here in the office. I wish him the best of luck in Congress. I think he'll be great.
You had a lot of experience here, including during his predecessor,
Correct.
Bob McCullough. How were they different?
I was hired by Bob McCullough about 17 years ago. Bob McCullough was a little bit more law and order. Wesley Bell was a little bit more reform. I have learned from both of them, and I plan on moving forward with what I've learned from both of them and make this a strong office and pursue the goals that I've already mentioned while talking to you.
Do you fashion yourself more of a Bob McCullough disciple, Wesley Bell, your own person? Where do you fit in this spectrum between law and order and reform?
I think I'm a little bit of both. However, I will tell you, I intend to rebuild our relationship with law enforcement, rebuild our relationship with the judiciary, as well as defense counsel. It's important that we all work very closely together, because that's the only way this justice system works.
You mentioned that you're not a politician, but there was a pretty heated political moment when you were first appointed and talking before the county council, where you leveled quite a charge. You said that someone close to Sam Page asked you to dig up dirt on a council member. Which council member?
Well, first of all, I don't think it was me leveling quite a charge. I was answering a question honestly. And I will tell you, as long as I am in this position in this office, I will always answer questions honestly Whether it's good or bad.
I appreciate that as
Yeah,
a journalist.
Yeah, I answered a question at the county council, to be quite honest, which I would have preferred had been asked in private. However, I was asked a question at the county council regarding what I had been asked to do, and I answered it honestly. I was asked to find dirt on Mike Archer. I answered that question honestly. I was not doing with the intent to level charges against anybody. But like I said, I will always answer questions honestly.
You say with the intent to level charges. Do you think that the ask itself was improper or crossed some other line?
Do I think the ask of the county council or of the person?
Pardon, the ask to dig up dirt. Was that request improper, or did it cross a line even farther than just improper?
I think it was absolutely improper. Yes, I do. I was in the interview process of trying to get the position of prosecutor. I don't think I had been asked to get dirt on someone who was running for office. And
you said at the time that you didn't recall who made that request. That's hard for me to believe, because I feel like if I was gunning for this big job or hoping that maybe I'd get this job and someone approached me with a question like that, I'd have a pretty clear memory of it.
I have a very clear memory of it. And I'm not going to disclose the name.
You were protecting the person's name?
I'm not going to disclose that person. I don't think that's relevant here. I have a very clear memory of what happened.
As you're probably aware, the county council is now pushing to create powers to expel the county executive, Sam Page. Is it proper for the county prosecutor to use your discretion, your investigatory tools, to use the quo warranto proceedings to expel a public official?
I am focused on the work here in the prosecutor's office, and that's what I will continue to do. I think what you're asking about is probably the quo warranto regarding Dennis Hancock, which I'm not able to speak about specifically because it's currently pending in the office.
Sure.
However, I will tell you it is being very closely looked at, and there's no room for politics or drama in the prosecutor's office.
Politics or drama, and yet here we are finding ourselves in the middle of a little bit of both.
A lot of both.
I want to ask you about a lot. That's an interesting remark that you make, a lot of politics right now, and it sounds like you want to tone some of that down. So we'll get into the Hancock side in a moment. But I asked the question about Sam Page because some prosecutors would say public corruption investigations are usually left to the feds. Let them do their thing. But in Missouri, you do have this special eject button, the quo warranto, the Latin phrase. I don't know why lawyers always have to use Latin to sound smart. But you have this power. Is that power that you're comfortable using?
That would be a case-by-case basis, Mark. At this point, I have no intention of moving forward on any quo warranto in the future or anything that I plan on doing. As far as Dennis Hancock, I will say that one is currently pending. Our office is looking at it very, very closely, so I can't comment on what is going on with that case.
I see.
But this will not be an office that is focused on any kind of politics.
It stood out to me that your office has already dropped the charges against the clerk, Ms. Diane Valenti, but has not dropped the quo warranto proceedings. I didn't know, you're telling us now that you're still looking at that. It signaled that maybe the quo warranto is something that you would proceed with. Did Wesley Bell put you in that position when he went public with all these documents, that now it's out there and there's some feeling in the office that you have to proceed with it?
Well, first of all, Wesley Bell did bring the quo warranto. There is no feeling or no pressure that I have to proceed with it. I will look at it independently of whatever Wesley Bell did. I don't feel pressure either way in terms of that.
We all saw that he hired his stepdaughter. That's a clear-cut violation of the Constitution. And the Constitution prescribes, as I read it, I think just one punishment for that. Do you see it any differently, or is there anything about the prescribed prosecutorial path there or is because he retracted so quickly and said, oops, does that factor into your decision?
Well, as I said, Mark, and I really appreciate your question, this is a pending matter in our office, and I'm not going to comment on it.
Yeah. The only reason why I ask is because, it wasn't too long ago that the feds did come here and Steve Stenger is no longer the county executive. I wonder about the message it might send the public if the incoming prosecutor said, when it comes to nepotism, we can look the other way.
Well, first of all, I will tell you, I'm not going to comment on that case, but I will tell you this. We currently have hundreds of cases under review that have been given no attention yet. We have thousands of pending cases. That is what our office's goal is, to focus on those. Whatever happens with the Dennis Hancock matter after review will happen. But we are going to focus on the thousands of pending criminal cases that we currently have.
Can you give us any clearer idea how you see that question of nepotism? It would be improper to hire your relative for a government job that other people weren't given the chance to apply for. There's a reason why it's in the Constitution. Does he get special treatment because he's an elected official?
I so appreciate your enthusiasm. I'm not going to comment on...
What's your timeline then to make a decision like this? Because
the Dennis Hancock matter. I'm sorry, what?
What's your timeline then to review and make a decision like this? Because, the public has seen and digested the facts of what has happened. Unless we're missing something else that maybe you're still reviewing, how much time do you need to review that?
What is my timeline when I have to make a decision by? There's no timeline. There is discussion about the case going on. The case is currently pending in the office, as you know.
It is very interesting. A lot of people that see all this politics happening as you take the position, and staffers like the clerk are getting dragged into it. I imagine people here might be wondering, am I next? Am I going to be a casualty in this transition? Will there be a purge of Wesley Bell staffers?
There's not going to be a purge of anyone. We have an incredibly strong staff here of prosecutors, support staff, investigators, and victim advocates. There's no purge going to occur. Like I said, we are all working together with the same goal, to make St. Louis County safer. We have previous people who have worked here before who have called me and want to come back. There's no purge. There's only going to be a growth in this office.
Interesting. And that again, will be more manpower, more cost. We'll set the budget questions aside for a later interview.
Sure.
One other thing that developed, started here in this grand jury room. During this investigation into Diane Valenti and into the Dennis Hancock situation, a document was published that included the name of the grand jury foreperson. Have you seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I heard about that.
Is that concerning to you?
Well, it's extremely concerning. Nothing should ever be leaked out of the grand jury. That is completely unacceptable and illegal. So yes, it's
illegal.
It's extremely concerning.
What law does it violate?
Actually, I can't list a specific law that it violates. It is extremely concerning if an indictment or anything is leaked out of a grand jury.
And that's because?
Grand jury is a private proceeding. It is a closed-door proceeding.
The name of the person in the grand jury being published could put a target on that person's back. If that same grand jury had handed down murder charges or recommended murder charges, if that involved a gang, it's not too far-fetched to think that that person's identity being published could put them in real risk.
Which is why it's completely unacceptable that anything should ever be leaked out of a grand jury. I'm agreeing with you.
What can you do about it?
Well, I have no idea where that leak came from. I'd like to find out where the leak came from. Questions are obviously being asked to determine that. That is a huge violation and a concern for that foreperson who you said name was clearly on the document that was...
Those names are usually redacted when they go public. Well, I say public. When they go to the court, I think they're already redacted before they even leave this room. The reason I asked this, the last time we talked to Wesley Bell, just as he was about to swear the oath of office and become inaugurated as a member of Congress, he said that he thought crimes had been committed, perhaps, and if he had more time in this office, that would be the first thing on his priority list, would be to go after and investigate how that grand jury foreperson's name was published. It sounds like you agree to some extent.
Oh, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. We have a lot of things on our priority list, and that is one of them. We cannot tolerate leaks from our grand jury or putting anyone at risk, in particular, any grand juror.
And if you find that some person under your employ
had leaked a grand jury document, well, they'll be terminated immediately. It's not acceptable.
I wonder, you're coming into this position with just 2 years left in the term, then there's an election. Have you already decided what you're going to be doing that November of 2026?
Well, I will run for election for this position. I know I have stressed repeatedly that I'm not a politician, and I know running for an election is politics. I will be running for this seat in 2 years as a prosecutor, and I am confident that I will win this seat based upon my track record, what I've done in these 2 years as a prosecutor. St. Louis County needs a prosecutor. They don't need another politician.
I suppose there are some, and I've met some prosecutors who say, I'm by the book, I'm just going to do the same old thing, this system works. There are others who see society shifting and changing. More carjackings, more teen gun violence. And they think we have to adapt and change with the times, to change our tools or our techniques to better get at that problem. Which are you of those two examples, and how will you confront some of those trickier issues, the societal issues that have so many kids trying to seek fame on TikTok or Instagram or just within their social circle, that they would take a gun and go point it at someone and take their car and ditch it on the road somewhere?
That is part of getting a strong office that is working in close partnership with law enforcement, focusing on the violent offenders, focusing on the gun crimes. We have got to get these kids who are on the streets with these guns, which just leads to more and more crime. We have got to focus on those. My philosophy, Mark, I grew up in St. Louis County. I raised my kids in St. Louis County. I want my kids to want to raise their kids here, but they're not going to want to unless St. Louis County is strong. So I, in partnership with my entire dedicated office, we need to make St. Louis County safer again. And part of that is I need to work closely with Gabe Gore in the city. These violent offenders who commit these crimes, they don't see imaginary lines. These are the same offenders who are committing the crimes in the county, in the city. We need to work closely in partnership and share our philosophies to make the entire region safer.
There's a lot of talk politically in Jefferson City about the use of the death penalty in Missouri. Missouri is one state that still has the death penalty. Will you ever pursue it?
Mark, I will tell you, people have asked me my opinion on the death penalty. My opinion on the death penalty doesn't matter. It's the law in the state of Missouri.
Is that true, though? I mean, you could use this office and forcefully advocate against the death penalty in all cases, if you so chose.
I personally do not believe in the death penalty. That doesn't matter. The death penalty is the law in the state of Missouri, and it will have to always be an option in the most heinous and violent murders. It is currently the law in the state of Missouri. I am not a legislator. I don't make the laws.
But they might listen to you. The reason I'm pushing on this is because I wonder, do you see it as, some prosecutors have described prosecuting cases like a poker game. If you have certain cards to play, it helps your leverage, it helps you seal guilty pleas rather. Is that the reason you're answering the question in this way, is that it's a tool in your toolbox? Or
the death penalty, if the death penalty is a deterrent in one heinous murder, then it's worth it.
Well, thank you for your time. I look forward to, we're all hoping that you do well.
Thank you, so am I.